Good morning, guys, or good afternoon whenever you're watching this. We're going to finish out this notes packet by going back to talk about topic 2.3. Remember, the topic numbers are based around something that AP College Board creates, not necessarily something that I put together. And I think that this now makes more sense, having learned about the structure of the membrane. So we're backtracking a little bit to topic 2.3, but it is the next section in your notes. We're going to start this with a quick video. So all you need to do is take a look right here while the video plays.
Some organisms are big and some are small, but they're all made up of cells. Some tiny organisms, like bacteria, are made up of a single cell, and all the materials they need must be supplied via their cell membrane. Large organisms, like us humans, are made up of millions of cells. To get the important stuff, like oxygen, to all of the cells that make up our bodies, we have a transport system that takes things to where we need them. We rely on the blood to transport what we need to where we need it. But why are larger organisms made of many cells, rather than a single giant cell? And why do we need such advanced transport systems, rather than simply allowing materials like oxygen to diffuse from the air through our skin to all of our body cells? The problem is surface area. Consider two cubes of different sizes. The smallest cube is 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, and so has faces each with an area of 1 centimeter squared. And there are 6 faces, so it has a total surface area of 6 centimeters squared. The larger cube is 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters, so each face is 4 centimeters squared. With 6 faces, it has a total surface area of 24 centimeters squared. So, the larger cube has a larger surface area, but the larger cube also has a larger volume. We need to compare the surface area of each cube with its own volume. The small cube has a volume of 1 by 1 by 1, which is 1 centimeter cubed. It has 6 square centimeters of surface area for every 1 cubic centimeter of volume. We can say that it has a surface area to volume ratio of 6 to 1. If we do the same for the larger cube, we can say that it has a volume of 2 times 2 times 2, which equals 8 centimeters cubed. This ratio of 24 square centimeters of surface area to every 8 cubic centimeters of volume can be simplified to 3 to 1. 6 to 1 is bigger than 3 to 1. It's obvious that the smaller cube has a larger surface area to volume ratio. Let's imagine that these cubes are living cells that need oxygen to survive. For oxygen to spread throughout the cells, it must diffuse through the surface. As the small cell has more surface area relative to its volume, every part of that volume can be supplied with oxygen at a faster rate compared with the larger cell. It would take too long for the center of the larger cell to be supplied with what it needs. If a large organism were made of a single cell, the exchange of materials simply wouldn't happen fast enough. This is what limits the maximum size of a cell. Since our bodies have to be made of many tiny cells, it's important that the materials those cells need are transported directly to them. This is the reason why we have a circulatory system with a really strong pump, that is the heart, constantly shifting nutrients in the blood throughout our body.
Okay, so in this, we're introduced to the idea of a particular size of a cell. And so most of our cells are really small for a reason. We are trying to maximize the amount of surface area compared to volume for each cell so that things can move across the membrane quick enough, fast enough that the cell can survive. And so we talk about this concept of surface area and volume connected to our cell membrane because really that's what we're measuring the surface area of the membrane surrounding the cell. And even as we look internal, the surface area of membranes around organelles. So we do not want to see it again. Hold on. Let's try this. There we go. So let's take some notes. If you go into your notes packet, cell size, the surface area to volume relationship, first consider it is a ratio. So when you see the two numbers side by side separated by a colon, the first number is going to be your surface area calculation and the second number is going to be your volume. If you were ever asked to actually divide your surface area by your volume, you might end up with a decimal, although most times I've seen this maintained as a ratio. So think about this: as the surface area of a cell increases, its ability to move contents quickly across the membrane will increase as well. There's more space, more surface area to do that moving. And so a high surface area to volume ratio actually makes a cell more efficient. And you saw that in the video, 6:1. That is a higher surface area compared to volume in the first cell that the video talked about, compared to the 3:1 ratio for the second cell, which ended up being larger. So what is optimal? What is preferred? We want a high surface area compared to volume for that cell, which really ends up being we need small cells. As a cell will grow, its volume increases, and eventually it hits a point at which its volume is too big for the surface area surrounding. And so the cell at that point becomes too big and is unable to move material. So we'll see what a cell can actually do as it grows to combat this. Now, I have a little picture down here of a mouse and of an elephant. This is an interesting conversation that I've seen introduced to middle school students before. What size are the cells in the mouse compared to the cells in the elephant? The mouse is a very tiny organism. The elephant is a really very, very large organism. So are their cells respectively small and large? And the answer is not really. There is a bit of a size difference, but in general, cell sizes are roughly the same in various organisms. So the number of cells that it takes to make a large organism like an elephant is definitely more than a mouse, but their overall cell size is relatively similar because if a cell gets too big, it becomes inefficient. So, last bullet here. The converse of what we stated before, if you have a low or small surface area to volume relationship, that makes the cell inefficient. So we're always wanting to strive for high surface area compared to volume so that there's more space or more membrane to move molecules across. So what can be done if our cell actually gets too big? Well, there's a couple of things. If our volume is increasing and it's becoming too much for the surface area that surrounds the cell, one opportunity or one thing that could happen is the cell divides. And so here's a picture of cell division. You can take what was one large amount, copy the DNA, copy the organelles, and then split the two cells into two smaller cells. So if a cell's getting too big, it can always trigger mitosis, or in some organisms, things like binary fission and budding. A cell could slow down its metabolism. Now, that's a kind of two-sided coin, because if this is a cell that's highly active, like our neurons, it really can't afford to slow down its metabolism. But if it is a cell type that could possibly slow down its growth, right? Metabolism could be equated to growth here. Then that is another issue, or another thing that we could do to combat the issue of growing too large for your surface area. The other thing that we see, and we see it frequently, is the cell can change its shape to increase its surface area. So I will remind you all the way back to, we talked about how cells don't all look the same. And we looked at intestines, the cells that line your intestines, and how they have villi, these large sort of folds in their membrane to increase surface area. And then if you zoom in on a villi, you see individual microvilli as well. And so all of these are ways to fold the membrane to increase surface area to account for a cell that has a larger volume. We still want to be able to move molecules back and forth across the membrane to keep that cell healthy and living. So increase your surface area. So there's our intestinal epithelium that we discussed a couple of lectures ago. So think about this. Large organisms must be multicellular to survive. So I know these are pictures of cubes, but think of these as the overall cube as an organism. So what if an organism of a particular size was made of one cell? Think of how long it would take to move molecules into and out of that one cell because of the size of the volume of the cell. So think about an organism that is the exact same size but has many cells. So in this case, we have 8 cells. It's a little more efficient, but probably still not able to survive. What if we had a third organism that in fact was made of even more cells, and a fourth that was made of, in this diagram, the most? This is a great example of why we are not 100 cells large as an organism. We are trillions of cells. And really, by being trillions of cells, you are creating smaller cells within an overall organism, which increases our surface area to volume relationship and keeps the organism healthy and moving substances back and forth in a timely fashion. So last thing I want to introduce you is to the math. If you've never calculated surface area or volume, there is a formula sheet that College Board allows you to use on the AP test. And so you'll be getting a formula sheet in class if you're a B-Day student tomorrow. If you're an A-Day student, you got it yesterday. When we calculate surface area and volume from the formula sheet, let's take a look at what we are seeing. Hold on, here's the formula sheet, the front of it, and then the back of it. The surface area and volume calculations are on the back. So right down here in this section, you can see the surface area and volume calculations for some common objects: a sphere, a rectangular solid, or a cylinder. And so based on what the shape of the cell is you're being asked to calculate, you could find appropriate formulas here. If you don't know what L, W, and H are, that's all right. Look over here and you have a key to all of your variables. So in calculating, it's actually kind of plug in your numbers into a calculator, and you don't even have to remember the formulas, honestly. So you'll use your formula sheet. Surface area is I like this picture of surface area because it is literally the amount of surface on this cube. So if we laid it out flat, there are the 6 sides of the cube. And so 6a squared, that is, or 6a cubed, that is the area of all 6 sides. And then here is the volume, length times width times height of a particular object. So cubes, spheres, and rectangular solids are typical of cell sizes or shapes that you will have to calculate for. Now you're going to do some practice, not on this, but in class we've done a little practice. If you're at home, you can look on the AP Bio calendar and see what and when you are doing practice. But there will be lots of opportunities for you to practice calculating and then to interpret those calculations. But keep in mind, as we wrap up this notes packet, you want a large surface area to volume relationship so that molecules can move in a timely fashion across the membrane. All right, y'all are done.